Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us tmosso@the1916company.com for all of your purchase, pricing, and availability questions regarding this watch. So today we are discussing a lovely 2022 launch from Chopard. This was late 2022 for the 2023 model year. It's the Alpine Eagle, and it is the pine green. So this is a project to benefit what is quite literally the Alpine Eagle Foundation, benefiting eagles that live in the Alps. So the pine green, of course, representative of the verdure over which they fly, a different take on the colored and textured Alpine Eagle dial that first bowed with the model when it arrived in 2019. So aside from the unique dial color, you have a little case-back dedication that we'll see in a moment. But in terms of composition, it is a standard 41mm lucent steel Alpine Eagle, 41mm in diameter, 9.8 millimeters thick, and then from edge to edge, if we're just counting the actual case, it's going to be 47.5 millimeters. If we're going to count the first link on each side, which is how I measure total distance across the wrist, then it's a beefier 54 millimeters. We'll throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters circumference, and the Alpine Eagle Pine Green is a substantial but not overwhelming watch. It wears roughly like a 41 millimeter Royal Oak, which is to say maybe a size or two larger than it is. It feels like a 42 on the wrist, and you can see that on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, I've got a little bit of clearance on each side. So I would advise that this watch will wear fine on a wrist as small as 15 centimeters in circumference. Being fairly flat with a stepped case flank, it will slide underneath a cuff. So 16 centimeter wrist right there. The bracelet, like the case, is made of lucent steel. Now, what is lucent steel? Well, it is harder than standard 316L and 904L. Those tend to be between 150 and 180 Vickers. This is said to be 223 Vickers, which means not only does it polish up nice, but it is also said to be a more scratch-resistant steel. Taking a look at the watch, it seems to have very few marks on it. So, while not completely untouched, it does appear that lucent steel is living up to its billing. The bracelet features a taper down from the integrated lugs. Of course, the whole design inspired by the 1980 Saint Moritz. If you've seen the Saint Moritz, then you would know that it's very similar to this, albeit on a 1980s scale. This is bigger and bolder, of course, to use two of the buzzwords of our industry's modern era. Every single link in the bracelet features this lovely interlock, meaning it feels very robust and it doesn't have a lot of lateral play, but it also has a very supple feel, and you can see from the bottom that every single link is removable, which allows for very fine sizing. We have a deployant clasp here, double deployant with a friction fit. We will demonstrate how that works. One side closes, and then it's a sequential close. The other side closes over that, just like that. Snap it shut, and you're good to go. Pop it open, and you can see the construction is quite conventional, and it has a well-considered curvature, so it traces the curved underside of your wrist. Jumping around to the case, nicely detailed, actually has a little bit more going on visually than some competitors, like, for example, the Patek Philippe Aquanaut, which has a fairly simple case construction, or the new and somewhat pricey IWC Ingenieur Automatic 40. This is a viable competitor to that, a slightly higher price point, but I think you get a better finished case with more intricacy to it, i.e. more time spent. Taking a look, it features that Saint Moritz design that grew out of the late 70s favor for integrated bracelet sports style watches, and so it does have a very Gerald Gent 1970s look to it, and that's simply because of the period from which the Saint Moritz design is drawn. We have a crown here. It is a screw down. The watch does have a robust amount of water resistance at 100 meters, and then you can see there's a compass rose. There's a combination of polish and media blast on the crown with crown guard structures. We have a dial that includes a deeply textured and, as you can see, very sharply textured and shaded pine green. This is not a simple metallic sunburst. This is a much more deeply grooved and somewhat spiral drawn type of texture, whereas a sunburst is a very light radial brushing. This actually has some curvature to it from the imaginary center point underneath the hands. We have radially arrayed quarter Roman numerals as well as indices, and we'll show you the date disc here so you can see the date disc. And all to their credit here, Chopard's giving you a date disc that is the same color as the dial. We have a hacking seconds function as well as a quick set and no shortage of luminescence. It is an easy watch to see in the dark. Flip it all over. Now you can see an image that is sort of a abstraction of an eagle soaring over the Alps, i.e. Alpine Eagle. Now you can see the movement is a chronometer certified Louis Chopard manufactured movement. It goes by 01.01C for COSC chronometer, 5 position adjusted, chronometer certified, automatic winding with a 60-hour power reserve, 31 pivot joules, and a 4 Hz beat rated. It's nicely sized and properly sized for this case. But you can see that, like many movements from the likes of Jaeger-LeCoultre and Audemars Piguet, and even brands as Auguste F. Piguet, it's a mostly mechanically finished but handsomely decorated movement. We have a combination of a fluting on the rotor, we have a nice machined bevel on the edge of all the bridges, polished screw heads, and then a handsome snailing across the bridges, which I tend to prefer to something like Côte de Genève, which would feel a little bit out of place on this very forward-looking and modern watch. So there is a lot to love here. And if you love this watch and you have questions, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.